Hi, I'm Spike Robinson, and tonight I'll be discussing some dangerous misconceptions about coercive groups and relationships. Coercive groups and relationships are all around us, from domestic abuse and pedophile grooming to human trafficking and terrorist radicalization. Millions of people worldwide are trapped in a web of undue influence, coerced to act against their own best interests. Sadly, although these people remain caught up between false hope and real fear, most outsiders cannot see the elaborate web of coercion and assume that the web does not exist, believing that the 13-year-old who is being prostituted to multiple men has chosen that life, that the woman staying with an abusive husband could leave if she really wanted to, that the cult member who believes his guru controls the weather is stupid, or even that the middle-aged couple who refuse contact with their non-believing children are simply bad parents. Undue influence is designed to be invisible to outsiders, so those not in its grasp look for other explanations for the bizarre behavior that they see. Because of this, a mass of dangerous misconceptions has arisen, myths about coercive control that need to be debunked. Here are some of the worst.
If it was really so horrible, they'd leave.
How much would you sacrifice to save the world? If you knew that simply by denying yourself some comfort and happiness now, you could help all life kind to ascend to a new level of enlightenment, wouldn't you do whatever was required of you? Most cult members are convinced that they are working for the betterment of humanity, and through the lens of their faith, what we would see as wrong becomes their right, harm becomes help, and even murder can be explained away. What is one human life compared to the fate of the entire universe? Even without the trappings of an afterlife, political extremists can readily contemplate suicide or even genocide, if it means creating a better world for their children. The fascist and communist movements of the 20th century proved this conclusively. As Hannah Arendt said, the surprise was in the banality of the evil. Ordinary people committed atrocities because they believed in a purified world. Many trapped in a coercive situation, especially those suffering domestic abuse, cannot see that there is anywhere else to go. Janja Lalich calls this bounded choice. Whether through exhaustion, misinformation, threats, or a combination of these and other factors, those inside the prison of belief cannot see their options, least of all, the option to escape.
I would never let that happen to me.
This unhelpful phrase is the bane of all survivors of high-control groups and relationships. Otherwise well-meaning friends and relatives seem determined to tell us that they would never fall for such nonsense, not realizing that they too could someday be vulnerable enough or unlucky enough to be trapped in a controlling relationship. Unfortunately, the probability of being seduced into a coercive situation has a little to do with who we are, but much more to do with the changes to our everyday relationships and routines. First-year university students away from home for the first time, seniors who have recently lost a spouse, or those seeking a new interest, income stream, spiritual path, or social outlet are all prime targets for manipulative people and groups.
They must be stupid, emotionally needy, or gullible.
Even in support groups for cult survivors, this phrase runs rampant. Someone will mention some point of the cult's credo they still believe, and others will pile on judgmental refrains. You must be really stupid if you believe that. Even after years of describing the exact processes of manipulation used to ensnare people into Scientology and other high-control groups, John and his guests will still get comments on this YouTube channel saying, "You couldn't be all that intelligent if you were in a cult." Friends and family members of survivors will speculate aloud that those who were entrapped must have been emotionally needy or just stupid. The reality is far removed from this assumption. Intelligent, well-adjusted individuals, often with high levels of education, can and do join cults. Om Shinrikyo, of the Tokyo sarin gas attacks, and Heaven's Gate recruited computer programmers, heart surgeons, and other intellectuals. Emotionally well-balanced people can be seduced by traumatizing narcissists into long-term abusive relationships. Like those proclaiming, "I would never let that happen to me," people who spout this myth have missed the important point, that coercion can happen anytime, anywhere, to anyone, given the right combination of circumstances.
All religions are cults.
It's just another religion.
Espoused by new religious movement scholars and atheists alike, this is perhaps the most unhelpful fallacy of all. Whether they choose to ignore the coercion and maintain that those in a high control group enjoy not having any autonomy or freedom, or condemn all religions as equally coercive, such blanket statements only cloud an already highly complex issue. Comparing all religions to destructive cults is like saying that all marriages are abusive. It's not only a vast oversimplification, it's simply not true. While some level of control can be found in any mainstream church, mosque, temple, synagogue, meeting house, or coven, it does not compare with the high levels of control found in a destructive religious group. This thinking also dismisses the reality of the high control groups with no religious trappings, such as political groups, therapy groups, multi-level marketing scams, gangs, human trafficking rings, or any of the other many situations where coercion is wielded without the slightest spiritual pretense. On the other side, there are plenty of new and old religious traditions, which are for the most part not abusive. It is the coercion, not the belief, that is objectionable to those who love freedom. If we can help people to think more clearly and to understand the manipulation of their emotions, they can make their own choices about their beliefs. Autonomy is the goal, not an imposed belief system.
It's their choice.
No one chooses to be abused, degraded, or tortured, physically, emotionally, or spiritually. Those in the clutches of manipulative people and destructive groups did not choose to become the pawns of their captors. Undue influence, coercive control, gaslighting, emotional blackmail, and other forms of manipulative pressure are in play, bringing otherwise sane people to believe the impossible, to ignore their friends and family, to hide abuse, to lie, cheat, steal, even murder or commit suicide, all from a lack of choice. From the wife who lies to friends saying that she just fell, to the parents allowing their children to die for lack of a blood transfusion, from the cult operative setting up a hate page on a critic, to the gang member who murders someone from an opposing group. People commit acts against their own self-interest every day, convinced, hoodwinked, and mentally bludgeoned into compliance through a web of fear, lies, pressure, and undue influence. To free society from the plague of undue influence, we must eradicate this fog of misinformation and disinformation that clouds the subject. We should gently correct those who believe them and point them to the evidence. Those of us with experience should speak out about our experiences without shame or embarrassment. The truth is that it can happen to anyone, and we can only prevent that by educating the world about the reality of coercion. Thank you very much, and have a good evening.
Hi, John here. Thanks for watching. We'd appreciate it very much if you would click like, as well as subscribe, and click the bell for notifications. Every dollar helps, and we welcome new patrons on Patreon, or you can make a one-off payment with any currency through PayPal. Thanks so much.